All right, welcome back, everybody. In this episode, we're going to finish off our discussions about who should have won NBA MVP awards or just awards in general. Finishing off with MVP, obviously goes to Giannis for the second year in a row. Now he is a two-time MVP. Both of us disagree with this pretty heavily. So, Rook, I'll let you begin with who you think should have taken home MVP.
Well, I mean, in a way, I see like all three of them are pretty deserving. Giannis expected it, honestly. You judging off the regular season stats, I mean, I think Giannis, let him have his time in the sun, time to shine. Defensive Player of the Year, MVP. Only people that have done that are Jordan and was it Akeem? Who else? Jordan and someone else have done that. Do you know, John?
I actually don't. I don't know if Akeem did that.
And so anyway, point is that it's barely been done. I know it's Jordan, and I think it's Akeem. One other player. Point is, Giannis locks them both up. Got both awards this year, back-to-back MVPs. The Bucks, best team in the East, did not look so hot towards the start of this year, honestly. Like February, March, their records were actually negative, below 500, and especially because they looked like they could have been, they could have pushed for the 70-72 win team, record this year. But yeah, they kind of started falling apart towards the end of the year. When bubble started, they didn't look like they were playing that efficient. You saw them drop a game to Orlando, and then you just saw the Heat wax them. So, playing Giannis, just guarding the paint, forcing them to make moves and other people get involved, and you just saw the only game the Bucks were able to win against the Heat, Giannis left. He turned his ankle within the first quarter. They didn't even play the whole game. It was Chris Middleton, your boy, lighting it up. Only reason the Bucks were able to win a game. So I see the regular season award. Sure, give it to Giannis. Had the best stats, almost averaged 30, over 13 rebounds, blocks, whatever. Yeah, sure. Of course, he's going to have a high field goal percentage when all his shots are in the paint, averaging more points in the paint since like Shaq, right? I mean, okay, obviously you're going to have a high field goal percentage. But I think that you saw when it came to crunch time, when games started to matter, you could focus in on Giannis, and he's very one-dimensional in that sense that he's working on his shooting. I think he's going to be able to be way better and figure out how when defenses are just locking him up in the paint. And you just see that in the playoffs. That's how the Bucks have gotten bounced the last couple of years. But by far the best regular season team in terms of, their standings records. Lakers might have given them a run for their money too. But yeah, Giannis, I could see it happening. I'm obviously pulling for Harden. I think LeBron has a case too. You got pretty much the defensive player of the year runner up with AD on his team as well. Obviously Harden's got Westbrook, but Westbrook fitting him into the new team, new system. And obviously Westbrook dealing with injuries too. But Westbrook came on really, really strong towards the beginning of this year. So all three MVP candidates had some help. I'd say that, probably Giannis had the least amount of help with Chris Middleton versus, AD or Westbrook. But the team composition for the Bucks is very, very strong, like the Lakers. Very, very big in depth. Bunch of really, really good players on both squads. The Rockets, not as much, right? You built a really good shooting team around Harden, but you could just tell if you're talking most valuable player, person that's impacting the game the most, it's by far James Harden. I mean, it's not even close in terms of what they're doing to put their team in winning positions. Harden, by far, averaging the most points in the league, winning his third straight scoring title. Of course, no one wants to talk about it. I mean, the dude's averaging more than Kobe, but no one's ready to talk about it. And I think that Harden is just, everyone just takes it for granted. Now, he can kind of tighten up a little bit in terms of his mental mistakes. I think he still gets a little bit of flack for that at times. That's why his turnovers are been one of the highest in the league. But he's really been clamping down on defense, becoming one of the best. No, he's already been a best post defender, but he led the league in steals this year. No one's ready for that. James Harden actually led the league in steals, total steals. And yeah, one of the best on-ball defenders, wing defenders, help defenders, post defenders by next gen stats. He very, 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 very good on defense this year, James Harden. And obviously offensive numbers speak for themselves. One of the most efficient scorers in the game is efficiency field goal percentage. Very, very close up there with LeBron and Giannis. Obviously, when you got players like Giannis and LeBron who are like shooting, Shaq type shots, averaging all these points in the paint, their field goal percentage is going to be a lot higher, especially when you have a shooter like Harden shooting step back. Not really good shots, but, he's averaging 36% or whatever from three, taking really hard shots, but still up there in efficiency with the best, most efficient scorers like Giannis and like LeBron. So you take Harden, who's taking these harder shots, having to do a lot more for his team, and still, put the Rockets in pretty solid position. The games were very, very close between, even the second seed, but the third through the sixth, it was very, very, very tight. I think the Rockets finished with the fourth seed, but it was by, about a game or two. I think you'll see Westbrook and Harden start to connect more, and the Rockets will be more efficient and play a lot better. The Rockets, I can see James Harden's just going to finish third place because of the Rockets standings. Lakers finished first on the other side, like the Bucks finished first on, in the East. Lakers finished first in the West, best teams, best players. So, most of the debate and the narrative is going to be spun around LeBron and Giannis, and Harden's not going to get much credit and finishes third this year, but easily could have won it. I mean, been snubbed plenty of times in the past, every year for the last 5 years, but it could have gone to anyone. They're all really, really good players, obviously. John, who do you think?
For me, I think it should have been LeBron. I think obviously he's always been someone who handles the ball a lot, but really taking over the point guard responsibilities for the Lakers this year, averaging over 10 assists a game, 7 rebounds, and 25 points per game. I will say he does have the most help on his team, right? Anthony Davis is better than Chris Middleton, better than Russell Westbrook, and the overall supporting cast was a lot better improved than it was last season, as well as it was for the Bucks or for the Rockets. So I will say he has the most help. Listen, I think voter fatigue is something you can always point to with LeBron, right? Like, there's a reason Jordan only won 6 MVP awards, right? Because it's like, all right, eventually got to give it to someone else, right? Now, I would, if I were to rank them, I would have ranked them LeBron, James Harden, and then Giannis, just off of a skill level. Right now, personally, I just think LeBron taking his team from having a comeback year, right? Having a groin injury last year, not making the playoffs. Then obviously the team's a lot better than it was last season. So it's not like he took last year's team and took them to the finals this year. But just his overall play, coming back strong, showing that age is but a number, and father time is way behind him right now. So really coming back, making an impact. And the Lakers just felt like an unstoppable force all season. Right? At no point in this year did you feel like, all right, they're not going to make the finals at least. They might have some competition along the way with the Clippers, the Nuggets coming on later, but I don't think anyone ever gave them anywhere close to making the Western Conference Finals, or even the Rockets, right? Like I just don't think that anyone assumed the Lakers were gonna struggle, right? And arguably they didn't. And I think LeBron, obviously, I believe he led the league in assists, if I'm not mistaken. And I just think year 16, he's still dominant. Year 17, I believe, he's still just destroying his competition. It was just a no-brainer for me, right? The guy is just a winning machine, and he was 100% the reason why the team was winning. So for me, it's LeBron.
Yeah, something else that's pretty cool for the Lakers too, LeBron. You take Giannis and Harden. Both Bucks and the Rockets have spent years building around Giannis and building around Harden, creating a team for them that they've been comfortable with in that system. Obviously Harden's the ISO ball D'Antoni system. The Bucks have more shooters spread around Giannis and do a little more interactive work with each of the players. But you can see that they built teams around him. Whereas, LeBron, he builds his own team wherever he goes, right? Like every championship he's won, in Cleveland, in Miami, he went there, he built that, right? It wasn't like they were there and then over the years, that the team was able to funnel players. Obviously, the Lakers were able to get him players and these teams were able to get him players. But my point is, like, he didn't spend years with the team and built that dynasty, built these players around him to make them successful. It's like LeBron's already successful. He brings it. He makes his own system wherever he goes, right? And LeBron, obviously the face of basketball and will be the face of basketball. I love for his legacy for him to get another ring, because I do think that, while Jordan, probably the most clutch player, had the best basketball career, I still think LeBron is the GOAT, right? I mean, when you go to your, 10 of the last 11 finals, and it's only because you tore your groin, you're on 3 different teams for this stint of finals. Like, I mean, like Jordan only did it on one team. He got bounced in the first round multiple times. He goes to the Wizards at the end of his career, and they don't do anything. I mean, LeBron is so late in his career, and like you said, leads the league in assists. Should have finished top in MVP voting. The dude is like, I mean, he's an ageless wonder. He looks like he's like turning back the clock in his age. But yeah, going to this new team 2 years in, and now it's like, oh, the Lakers are taking over the league. It's like they only needed 1 year, and here we go. They're an unstoppable force. Of course, when you have a guy like Anthony Davis that helps you out, really, really happy for Anthony Davis too, coming into his own. You know, it was on the Pelicans, had some success with the Pelicans, but unfortunately just kept getting bounced by the Warriors because, you know, they were kind of like a low seed in the playoffs. And then they face these crazy Warriors. I think they were able to knock off 1 or 2 games, maybe 2 times they played the Warriors when AD was there. But the Pelican, you know, he didn't stand a chance until he got some real help. Even though the Pelicans had a nice little unit, he needed to join another superstar, and LeBron needed another superstar like him to be at the successful point that they're at now. And like you said, the Lakers didn't really struggle too much in the playoffs. I thought the Rockets were definitely going to give them more of a run for their money. The Rockets looked a little defeated, just other stuff going on with Daniel House getting out of the bubble, you know, distracting them, and then they just start turning the ball over way too much. Westbrook really never able to get really comfortable in the bubble, you know, had COVID, had the quad strain. You know, he played while he had a couple good games, had a couple, you know, really, really off games, and just, you know, he didn't look like himself. And the Westbrook we saw at the beginning of 2020 when he was playing super efficient, averaging 30 points a game. You took that Rockets team, I was playing well with Harden ready to go. I definitely think they would have pushed the Lakers to 7 or really 1. I would have taken the Rockets to win the series. So while I think that the Lakers, like you said, they didn't get pushed that far, I think the Heat by far going to be the best unit they've played so far in the playoffs. And for sure going to be an exciting series. Excited to see how it shapes up. But yeah, I mean, MVP at the end of the day, they're all deserving. I do think that LeBron should have got more first place votes. That was kind of the thing, that he really didn't get that many first place votes. I thought for sure, you know, especially the more kind of experienced, cultured people in the basketball world voting. Like I know Stephen A voted for LeBron. Obviously, I don't want to say Stephen A so I can, you know, his point really matters too much. But the point is that I definitely thought that players the people that would be voting would have given LeBron more first place votes. Like Harden expected it. LeBron, I thought it would have been a little closer.
Absolutely. And I ever since, honestly, I'm a big proponent that the players should decide the NBA awards, not the journalists, right? Because if you track history, they tend to, whoever has the best storyline tends to be the one who wins MVP every
It's all
single.
narrative. It's all
Yeah,
narrative.
it's all narrative when you deal with journalists. So, and I'm not to degrade what they do. Obviously, they're terrific at their jobs, and they also do know basketball on a certain level. But I do think that when it comes to awards, I think it should be peer decided anyway. You know, because they're obviously all they see is the stat sheet, and they know storylines. They have connections and sources and everything. But I just believe that NBA players should decide who the most valuable player is, who the best defense, you know, because they're there, they play against them, and I think it should be a peer-driven award. But for that exact reason, right? It's voter fatigue, right? LeBron does not win MVP awards anymore because he's already had his time to win them, right? And it says, oh, you're not in Miami. It's, you know, we see this every year, right? He probably has to go average like 40 and 10 for him to get any sort of you know, recognition to be MVP. So and same thing with Harden, right? Everyone, the narrative there is they're free throws, right? Free throws are the reason why he scores so much. But it's just you know, you still got Kobe shot a lot of free throws too, and so did this guy named Michael Jordan. And Giannis shoots arguably the same amount of free throws, if not really close to it. So you know, I think it's a stupid argument, silent argument to make about the free throws. I mean, Harden's an amazing all-world talent. And if he was bad at basketball, he wouldn't be as good as he is, right? Regardless of if he made free throws or not. And that's part of his game too, right? Like Kobe used to study where referees were going to be so that he could play defense and foul guys and not get caught for it. So I mean, the best players study the craft, and they set themselves up for success. And you know, so I think it's a stupid argument. But for LeBron, I think Anthony Davis, while it's the best skill teammate he's had in his career, probably. I mean, you can argue Dwayne Wade, but I would say Anthony Davis is probably more in his prime than Dwayne was when LeBron and him were in Miami. But I think arguably he's probably one of the worst fits for LeBron. In terms of, I mean, he's not Kevin Love, he's not Chris Bosh in terms of able to space the floor. You know, Anthony Davis is someone who needs post touches and can shoot the mid range, but he shoots threes, but he doesn't shoot them amazing, right? Like Bosh Bosh is probably the second best. Kevin Love's probably the most pure 3-point shooter of the three big men that LeBron have played with that have been all-stars. But really, I think the fact that LeBron is able to make, no matter what situation you put him in, he's able to make it work. And he excels them to a success level that they would not have otherwise, regardless of what's around him. I think he's so versatile and so dominant that he makes whatever is handed to him work. And you mentioned with the four teams, right? He has never gone to a super team before, right? Like Miami was not an amazing team before he and Chris Bosh went there, right? Cleveland was going nowhere with just Kyrie Irving before he went there, right? And same thing with Los Angeles, right? With Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, Kuzma, like they weren't necessarily, they were still rebuilding team. He's always gone to rebuilding teams and turned them into final contenders, if not championship contenders in the first year and definitely the second year, if you look throughout history.
Yeah. Besides that injury with the Lakers, rebuilding, but you saw his first real healthy season with AD. The Lakers are back in the finals, projected to win it all. AD, I do like your point that you said that when you related him as the other best players. AD not tended to be much known for his shooting, but he has been shooting the ball very well from mid-range, from 3-2 in this playoffs. And like, as a Rockets fan, I was saying like we need to bait him to taking these mid-range jumpers, and he was hitting them on us. He hit them in the Nuggets series. He's been shooting the ball actually very, very well. And so Anthony Davis is very surprising that I would say, hey, you want to beat them, force them to shoot that. But they are, and he's making them, and they're losing. So Anthony Davis, what I think we should point out about him as LeBron's teammates is like, while LeBron and we're voting for him for MVP, like Anthony Davis, I think this is the first time LeBron's teammate is like LeBron is almost deferring to Anthony Davis as the best player. Like while LeBron is still the best player in facilitating the team overall, like Anthony Davis is almost like the purest, best like scorer, attacker, player that LeBron's had. Like Wade, right. But my favorite player, Dwayne Wade, past his prime when LeBron ended up going to him. Of course, very, very, very good still. But LeBron was still the dominant force, right? With Kyrie, he still defers to Kyrie and Kevin Love. But LeBron was still by far like, okay, he's the best player. But honestly, now with AD, it's almost like AD is the one that takes over more. And he's informed. It's like AD is the guy. Like this is his team. While LeBron, I still think would be the best player on the team, in terms of facilitating, leadership, etc. AD, this is like the first time LeBron's almost like, I don't want to say like, he really is deferring AD, like letting AD kind of take over. And they're going to be the reason they win. But AD is going to have to make these big shots, these mid-range jumpers for them to, be competitive against the Heat, because the Heat are going to force them to take that and not get a bunch of stuff inside nearly as much as they have been getting in the playoffs.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say is just like LeBron is you're right. LeBron is the better player in terms of leadership and experience, and deferring to Anthony Davis probably is a factor, or is the byproduct of being that experience and knowing when to do that and knowing how to use your teammates. And I think the exact same thing happened with Dwayne Wade. There's been a bunch of interviews done where Dwayne's like, I mean, it's arguable, but I would say Dwayne Wade was the more experienced, better leader when LeBron first came to Miami. And when that second year, when he says like, oh no, I deferred, I said, this is LeBron's team. I'm going to use him to be the best player. That's when they started winning championships. And I think LeBron just made that switch a year earlier.
Yeah, I like that comparison with LeBron's like the beast like AD is right now, and Wade was like that leadership role, the kind of like LeBron's taking over now. While LeBron is making more of an impact than Wade was when LeBron joined the Heat, Wade was still very, very good, easily averaging over 20, making great shots. So no disrespect there, but definitely do see how LeBron is kind of like that leadership role that Wade was for him early on, and because AD is entering like the pinnacle of his peak of his prime. Whereas, all these other great players were like Kyrie was still on the rise in his prime. And then the other great players, Kevin Love, Bosh, Wade, were all kind of descending off their prime. And now it's like LeBron, I don't want to say he's descending off his prime because he's been prime time for like 10 years, but it's like now, you got AD, who's like the biggest force to be reckoned with in the series, by far, probably the most dominant guy on both teams. So should be very, very interesting to shake up how. I'm excited to see this first game. Who you got game one?
I'm going to take Lakers in game one.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll take the Heat.